What's going on out there, YouTube family? We are back. We are about to go in straight up. This is a spoiler-filled review. So if you've not seen the episode yet, go and check out Chapter 11, Episode 3 of The Mandalorian Season 2, and then come back to this because we're about to go full tilt for the next 15 minutes. So, off rip, this episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron Howard's daughter. What did we think about this episode, gentlemen?
Uncle Lou?
Filler. It's the best way to put it. It's a filler episode for the story to push the season forward. I mean, it introduces necessary characters. It gives you no story that really matters that much, but it's an episode to push the season forward, which you have to have. And it was awesomely directed by Mrs. Howard. I'm not going to call her Ron Howard's daughter. And not at this point, Sam.
Dang, really?
Bryce Dallas Howard has been doing this for how many years? And you still consider her like Ron Howard's daughter at this point?
I mean, it is their blood. Anyway. Nijay, what about you?
I thought this was one of the best episodes so far, for different reasons. I thought because of look, I want to say this, like at this point now, if you're watching it and you're loving The Mandalorian, if you have not, and clearly you have Disney Plus, but if you have not taken the time to watch Clone Wars, it's almost criminal. Or Rebels, it's definitely criminal if you have not watched these two. And it's good to see again the storylines like I talked about last week that we've got in those animated series now being brought to the big screen live action because we've never seen them a lot of these things touched up on in the Skywalker saga. So seeing this for me, I'm kind of impartial here because I agree with Lou, but the fandom in me is like, hell, this was cool because we got some good Easter eggs, we got some really pivotal important characters in all of Star Wars introduced. And I just had a good time with it. And you know what's kind of crazy? This episode felt like one of the most action-packed, and it was the shortest thus far. So that just tells me how good I thought it was done. This episode was done as far as putting together any type of in filmmaking, how it was well done, all put together.
Yeah, I completely agree with Najir on this. And to be fair, I've not seen all of Rebels, and I only saw the first 2 or 3 seasons of Clone Wars, even though it was amazing. But the nudges and the character drops and the Easter eggs, like the Star Wars fan in me was just kind of gushing with all the different things that they just added and touched in. I mean, even from just having Katie coming back and reprising her voice role of Bo-Katan and actually being able to play the actual character, I thought that was a really dope nudge. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring Najir definitely on this episode is because I know that there was a certain actress that also played one of the Mandalorians. I wanted to see if you could speak on, because I don't know enough from the wrestling side of things, but I do know that she's a champ, and I do know she was happy about this opportunity. But how do you think about, her character she's been able to procure, and then also the Mandalorians, the 3 Mandalorians that showed up in this episode from let's just go ahead and go into it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for anybody that's not a wrestling fan, Mercedes, aka the boss, Sasha Banks, is in this. She's Snoop Dogg's daughter, and she is your current WWE Women's SmackDown champion. We had known her picture had popped up some time ago, so everybody in the wrestling community knew she was in this series. There was tons of rumors of what she was going to be, but nonetheless, her actually seeing her on screen still gave you the same chills. It was really. As a wrestling fan, seeing people cross over is always a good thing. Being a staple in this episode in the way she was, I thought was really cool. But nonetheless, I mean, I thought they kept her in a really protected role. A lot of people were shooting her. I can't even think what character it was, but they were shooting for her to be somebody bigger. And I think that with her she's clearly a talker from being a wrestler, but she may not just be that top tier of an actor. And I think this is a really safe way to keep her look really good, really mystique, give her a lot of face time and purpose, and making this, signing her on for this project, making it as beneficial as in all ways. So like really cool to see the boss Sasha Banks on the Mandalorian. I know a lot of people are still raving about it. So who knows where she goes after this? But I think this was definitely a really good plaque to put on her wall to saying like she's part of something truly special right now.
Yeah, and other thing I liked about this episode too for me was kind of just even how it jump started this. It just went straight in. Like it came with the same Frog Girl and the Mandalorian, and of course the baby. And they were like, he was like, "Look, I gotta go in manually."
Excuse me, Sam. Do not call him the baby. Call him the apex predator he is.
Look, well, first off, he was a lot more tame in this episode. He didn't eat the baby infant tadpole, so I'll give him some grace this episode. But just how it started off and them going into re-entry, I thought that was a really dope scene. But even deeper than that is kind of like he's like, okay, now I got what I need. I got the information I need. Now I can kind of connect with my group to try to get him to where he needs to be. But again, from a visual standpoint, like that was just such a dope shot, man. And so I had to give all the credit for the way that the execution of how Bryce was able to really direct this episode and kind of push it forward. And then the action of this, like the action of it was actually really dope. It was kind of weird because I was finally like, could they make a spinoff from these characters alone and make it go anywhere in y'all's personal opinion? I know people were talking around that. I would be curious to see Bo-Katan and seeing where she goes from this point. I don't know about a spinoff, but I was curious y'all's personal perspective on just the way that her group went as well as the way they executed the characters in this episode.
Oh, Uncle Lou, you first.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No spinoffs. No, God, no spinoff. With the show being named The Mandalorian, that doesn't mean you need to focus on just one of them. To me, you use the show to bridge more Mandalorians and more culture. You don't build your world up to then split it up. So for me, these three characters will be great in future episodes when you don't want to solely focus on this one Mandalorian. Let's focus on other people. Great shows have done that in the past, and I think this is a good setup to do something of that nature, of just a departure from his storyline and introducing their storyline and then combining both storylines again down the road.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on you a little bit here too. Yeah, I think that the one thing that good successful franchises are good at is not spreading the wings too far. I think The Mandalorian does a good job in introducing you good characters that we can invest in, but also giving us the opportunity to bring them back in at some point. I mean, sure, Moff Gideon is a really pivotal and is clearly the antagonist of The Mandalorian as of right now. But if we had not have gotten him at all since season one, I think everybody would have just been really cool with that, saying like that was really cool that they brought in the Darksaber and et cetera, et cetera. But that's truly not Mando's journey right here. But now that we're seeing how it's getting all tied in, of course we're going to see this trio again to some extent. And in the fashion of how they come in, rescue, they have their own mission, their own culture, like you said, and their style of strategy and war. Should we kind of allude to a little bit here? We can see them jump in for something and jump out, and it was just like we know who they are because they've already been introduced, and that'll just be good. So yeah. Not a lot. We don't want too much here. This was good, and continue doing what they're doing, focusing on, the story with Mando, but introducing us to the culture of the Mandalorian in whatever ways they got to do. Keep going forward.
Yeah, and I guess the next thing, even say off of that, the Darksaber, of course, was name dropped, because Bo-Katan. The reason why she was trying to even get items from that specific ship because she was hoping that it might be there, and she already knows that he has her Darksaber. And I'm curious because they're treading along this interesting trend of like the Jedi and the Darksaber. Like, where do you guys really think this is going? Because honestly, at this point, I can't really anticipate anymore because now we know for a fact. Of course, Ahsoka has already been name dropped in this episode, but we knew she was coming. But when you start treading along characters like this, anybody's liable to be connected to this. And I don't want to get I don't want to get too excited, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I love not knowing. Do you think that there's a limitation of how far they're going to go with this, or you think they're just going to go full tilt with it and keep it consolidated and concise as executed as they've been doing?
Oh, to me, this is always the branch off show. So this is the show they're going to use to further their television Star Wars universe. I think they'll introduce the Jedis, but they won't focus on them because there's no need to focus on them on this show. The purpose of him getting the baby to where it needs to be, and after he does that with the Jedi, that's kind of it. Everything else, you move on to more of the Mandalorian story of it, and then you leave the Jedi portion for a different show. I think that's the whole point of the Mandalorian, to me, was always to launch their Star Wars television universe.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with Lou here. Pretty short and sweet on that one. And at the same time, too, I mean, I think that this series is going to really fill in a lot of the unknowns that the Clone Wars even left us with. And even though that the Clone Wars had to come back with that last season to really put some perspective as to what happened after what happened after that season before that, what happened with Ahsoka, what happened with Darth Maul. I mean, look, these people were casted for a reason, so clearly we're going in that reason to kind of bring some of that more to the forefront on a bigger stage because it's live action and this really beautiful how's everything's just like beautifully shot. Being able to see that off of the animation board up to the big screen, I think is a lot of what they want to do as well too. I think because everyone involved with this just loves Star Wars so much that I feel like some of them feel like this is just their duty to do that for the fans. But some of them, I think they're just such fans that like they really want it for themselves to say like, look, I love what we have. Let's actually bring this to the people. So I think it's going to still be contained. I don't think they're going to go out to start branching out to things that we don't already really know. As far as like with characters, but I think they are going to really fill in some of these voids within these characters that we know, and just kind of go forward in that navigation. And again, much like Lou said, really focus on Mando, really focus on getting the child back to the Jedi and figuring out where the rest of the Mandalorians is and more about their culture.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think it's just, for me, the beauty of the show for me is that you got all these different elements of unknowns for as far as every single character that's reintroduced or is introduced as new characters. Because even Mando wasn't somebody that was even relevant before, and now he is very pivotal and almost in the connective canon. So it's kind of like we don't even know who this child is or what it will be, and how that's going to be something completely different. And the interesting thing about the way that Disney is platforming the Star Wars universe in general, there's so much they can do now. Like there's so many different directors that are taking the universe in a different direction that they can really own this and they can really make this something very special without having to connect to what was in the past, but paying homage to it at the same time in a very intricate way by telling different perspective. And I think that's one of the things I'm really excited for where this goes from this show, and as well as future seasons of this show as well. But yeah, I thought this was a dope episode. It was exciting to me. I liked it. I was hyped. The Star Wars fan in me was really hyped. But yeah, I don't have much else other than that. I think it technically was filler, but it wasn't. Like it's important key characters that are going to come back later, but the main narrative is getting him to the Jedi, and I think we're about to see where that's going to go.
I think a good term to use here is the side mission of the main story arc is what happened here.
And that's what kind of makes it a filler episode, is that it literally gave you nothing for the main story.
Yeah.
It just gave you stuff of a side plot to the main story. So that's what makes it a filler. Whenever you get that, you always get a filler episode when it doesn't give you anything to push the main plot line forward. All we know at this point is great. He met other Mandalorians and now he's on the same mission he's been on.
Yeah. And I also say too, because that we learned that there's Mandalorians coming from different they have different practices, as soon as they took the mask off, you're just like, oh, And let me make sure I get all the terms correctly really quick here. But I think it's important to know that while he's very vigilant in finding the ones that practice the way he does, he seems to be a little bit susceptible to the ones who aren't. And I think that speaks a little bit to the humane side of him, that no matter how you look at it, he's a killing machine, but he's taking care of a kid. Let's just put that back out there. But like at the same time, and again, yeah, they come from clan craze, and he's from the Child to Watch, where the Child to Watch practices the ancient ways, which keep your mask on. All the ones we've seen from season 1, the ones that we said this is the way, and the other ones are like, but we do things by any means necessary.
So the difference between a Roman Catholic and a Catholic.
Exactly. I literally was going to say something else religious, but I just let it slide. Thank you.
Basically, that's the difference between a Roman Catholic and a Catholic, because they are under the same religion, but choose to practice it differently.
That's so funny.
That's what this was.
Yeah, and that's going to make things so much more interesting when Boba Fett comes in, because what does he believe now, and how they're going to clash or work together? They're going to have to clash, because either way, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm hyped. Anyway, we're going to stop here. We're past the 15-minute mark. Hope you guys enjoyed this full discussion. We'll be back next Sunday. Definitely go down to the description bar below. You can check out Big Gold Belt Podcast Media. You can go and check out Lou on Twitter, and you'll have everything else from what we've done in the past. I'm going to try to make a playlist so you guys can easily just go and check out each one of our discussions on everything. All right. Peace, guys. Boop, boop, boop.